my trusty workhorses, Eric and Dieter, and we let Diane off the hook again. I think we got to look at her attendance record here, Eric. We may have to do some remedial training here. She's having her fun meter must be peaked. She's off with a gathering of friends from long time, at least 20 years, I think. Or so. So anyway, but we're here to welcome you. I'm going to see if I can execute. Oh, sure. Can do some PowerPoint stuff here or some things. And so here we go.
We got definitely some good content today. And I just, I'm not sure you're going to probably talk about it, but I just want to, again, shout out to all of our Birds of a Feather members and all the great posts and support that's going on in there. It's just really, really awesome. And Ron, what are we doing tonight?
Hey, what we're looking, hopefully we're looking at the title slide. Is that
we are.
Yay! Victory, at least for the first 5 minutes. So anyway, just a reminder, this is the place to go if you're afraid to fly, if you know someone who's afraid to fly, or if you just like to talk about airplanes or conspiracies, because we'll probably have a little bit of that today in the show, since there's some breaking news here that Eric is going to introduce in just a minute. And as Dieter said, we really want to thank everybody who's joined the Fearless Flight Facebook group, and keep those cards and letters coming. And by way of that, I mean keep joining, and we're up over 1,000, and it makes a really, really good critical mass to get a lot of activity. So you're pretty much guaranteed if you go into the group, you're going to find some support somewhere, or you're going to be able to give it to someone else. And so tonight we're gonna talk about Make Beer Not War. I'm sure you can't wait to see what that's all about. We're going to talk about overcoming fear of flying and relapse prevention if we get to it. We got some other than the industry news here coming up. And as always, questions and comments. And if you're watching this either live or after the fact, we sure want to encourage you to lost my train of thought. We want you to make a comment, leave a comment, and make yourself known here. And so with that, we'll talk about the in the news there. And I guess I should just put that headline up there. What do you think, Eric? Should we just blast it right out there?
Oh, I don't think anybody will notice it. Just skip over it.
Yeah. And
they notice.
We'll see if people were aware of that. So here it is. Oops, that's not the one I want to. Here's the one. And it was Eric's idea for the Alfred E. Newman there. What me worry, but once again, somebody has broken to the news that it's certainly not an authority. So what do you know about that, Eric?
Well, the extent of the reporting was there was reporting about the China Eastern crash today, and somebody reported to the Wall Street Journal, and that person was identified as someone directly familiar with the investigation, so that the investigation had revealed that direct pilot input to the flight controls caused the vertical dive and subsequent crash. Who the person was making the inputs, we don't know. And the NTSB is silent, and the Chinese are silent. And the person that mentioned this, the Wall Street Journal, evidently had some credibility, but they certainly didn't admit to who they were, because I find it highly unlikely that they were supposed to be revealing this information on their own. But that came out.
And with the kind of control that the Chinese government has over the media, the state media there. I mean, it's gotta be, I can't even, do you even know? I mean, the NTSB is involved, but can you imagine them even being able to see that cockpit voice recorder at this point?
Well, they evidently had it. They evidently had it. And this is further doubled up with the only thing to come out from the Chinese was they grounded after that all their 737-800s, which was a lot of them, during the investigation. And then about 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, they said, okay, there's nothing wrong with the airplane, so we're flying it again. and just that blanket statement, and the airplanes were back in the air, and that was it.
So well, let's get down in the weeds with all the gossip and stuff like that. So if I was the Chinese government and I had the death stranglehold on the news media like they do, that would be a good first strategy, right? Just blame it on Boeing because they've been in the news and whatnot. So this is really going to upset the apple cart if it was what it was. And I didn't hear it yet, but what the speculation is, of course, that it was pilot caused, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And what were they based on that on? What was the unknown tipster? What was his conjecture that as to why it happened?
There was direct pilot input to the flight controls that caused the airplane's vertical dive.
Okay, so for all of you out there who just couldn't wait for another one of these, pilot incapacitation or not incapacitation, but not having the capacity to fly. I'm sure this is a great bit of news to you, and we're going to deal with that a little bit with the rest of the content down the road tonight. But it's horrendous news, and you have any thoughts about it, Eric? I mean, you were sharing some at the beginning or before we got started here.
I don't, and I have no secret information or anything like that. It's just devastating, and I was shocked, as I told Ron. I said, I think I lost some liquor bets with people against this being a pilot induced crash. I just can't remember who I bet. So I'm as shocked as everybody else is, but nevertheless, it's out there to some extent now.
Yeah. So, well, turns out it may have been a pilot induced crash, but just not the kind of inducement that we thought.
No.
Can you see the question I put up there?
I do.
Okay. So we just wanted to throw that out to the group tonight. And or if you're watching the replay, as I said before. So the latest news report about the China Eastern Airlines crash troubles me and will alter my decision to fly. So I put down there our typical choices. I strongly disagree with that statement. If you agree, put an A. If you slightly disagree with that, select B. If you slightly agree, select C. And if you strongly, whoops, I gotta change that last one. The last one should be strongly agree. So just remember, first is strongly disagree, strongly or slightly agree, and strongly agree. So if you would just, if you're on board with us right now, just go ahead and put down how that might affect you. And we'll take a look at that as you make your declarations here as we go through there. Well, let's lighten that up a bit. Because and let's reemphasize the fact we don't know squat about really whether that's true or not. We don't know whether it's going to be true. We don't know what the basis of that information is based on or anything like that. So we're just going to have to be patient, which is the frustrating thing about airplane accidents, is waiting for the truth to come out.
And most of the answers are slightly disagree, so B and C. So
okay,
that's kind of like where it
I'm gonna take credit for our influence on that. All right.
Yes.
So
and I didn't want to bias the quiz answers, but there was another news feed telling us under the by the way department that last year we surpassed 43,000 highway deaths in the United States, which was a very good effort on our part and a 10-year high. But I didn't want to throw that out there before people answered the question, because that would skew it some more.
It was 23,000, and that was a high.
43,000.
Oh, 43. Yeah, 43. And largely probably contributed to by COVID, right? Because people are, driving their own cars and stuff like that. And it reminds me, right after 9/11, there was a Dutch fella who did a survey, and what he found out, he concluded that there were 1,595 more deaths in the year immediately following 9/11 in the United States than there were up to that point. And what was that based on? Or what was his theory about that? Because more people elected not to fly because they challenged the safety and all that. And so they got in their cars, and what gets lost is If you had a relative that got killed in a car accident that year, you would never even connect the two. You would just think, oh, well, his bad luck and all that. So I'm glad to see that we're creating I'm going to take credit for it again. We're working to help people become less reactive. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about how you overcome fear of flying. We're going to review that. And we're going to talk about what that means for relapsing.
And I just want to say there's a comment by Carol, and Carol, she's due to fly tomorrow, and it makes her anxiety increase a little bit. But unless, Carol, you are in China, I really would, tell you that while these incidents obviously can and ever so often do occur, I mean, that is even less of a chance anywhere in the North American hemisphere. So I just wish that you have blue skies tomorrow and that you enjoy your flight as much as you can. So
yeah, absolutely. And I've been getting this. I've had I would say at least a half a dozen coaching calls since that China Eastern Airlines crash, who people are worried about that. And the way we end up resolving it is, number one, I'm not flying in China. Number two, I'm not flying on China Eastern Airlines if I'm in China. Probably I'm going to go in on a United, Delta, American or something like that. I'm probably not going to do that. It'll be interesting. I know that our friend, our formerly fearless flyer. Oh, sure. There goes his name again. Anyway, he's gone through about 5 years ago or so now, and he's living in China. So I'll have to reach out to him and see what he said. He's one of our graduates, and he went from absolutely positively not being able to fly in an airplane to now he's flying everywhere, including inside China there. So I have to reach out to him. Remind me afterwards, you guys, and I'll send
and as you've pointed out many times, these things are certainly headline and attention grabbers, but are just an incredible statistical hiccup.
Yeah. So take a deep breath if you're flying tomorrow or flying in the near future. Take a deep breath and know that that's not very likely for you to happen. And it may or may not work, but that's part of the issue with everybody anyway who has a fear about flying. Okay, now this on a little bit lighter note. I found this. I just thought this was delightful, and this looks like somebody just wrote on this slide here. But Eric, I'll let you explain. This is skywriting in an unusual way. So explain this, Eric.
This fella in Poland, right? Made this, flew this flight path with a fairly new kind of equipment in airliners and other planes called ADS-B, and it stands for Automatic Directed Surveillance, and the hyphens for broadcast. You get information into the plane and out of the plane, so the airplane shows where it is and where it goes. So he flew this flight track, and his ADS-B showed the track of the airplane when you logged into the airplane's distinct transponder code for his flight.
No. Actually, no matter any of the flight surveillance softwares out there, the programs like Flight Radar 24 or whatever that is, any of them would have depicted this.
Okay, so however, I will say, without knowing, I would bet you a lot of money that he had a powerful 3-axis autopilot flying this flight track that he had loaded in there prior to flying it. Because how on God's green earth would you remember where you were?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, he pride. It's inconceivable that you can remember if you're on the top of the first E or the bottom of the second E. I mean, there's just no way. He would have had to load that before the airplane flew it.
Yeah, it's very creative, and just to remind everybody, the whole purpose, the system that allowed him to program his computer to fly this precise flight track over there is the same one that you're going to be exposed to if you go across the oceans and fly in Europe or anything. And do we have uniform coverage on ADS-B in the U.S. now?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay. So everywhere in the world now, essentially, where you're going to fly, we've got this kind of coverage. So if your airline pilot wanted to take another 4.5 hours out of his schedule, he could do this for you. You know, you might send a note to the cockpit and ask him if he's taking requests. But anyway, I just thought it was clever, and
Awesome.
they did it in a part of the world now that's got some strife there. So a little bit, it certainly helps to balance the negative news from the.
That would not have been. We were both talking about this. That would not have been a short trip. That probably killed most of his afternoon, I would think.
Yeah, 4 hours and 20 minutes. I think it took him to do that. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So we want to talk about overcoming fear flying. Just kind of we're going to hit the high spots here and make some commentary about how that affects relapse, because I'm getting I'm getting people who have gone through in years past, and with the pandemic is probably the biggest interrupter, but just not flying it's caused people to relapse, and we're as much about wanting you to get over your fear to get on your next flight, but we're as much about wanting you to stay so that you can continue to do that. So we want you to have the whole thing, and this is something that I've started talking about here in the last 6 months or so. Attention is the boss of the brain. So the problem with any kind of anxiety is that it operates through your normal fight or flight survival system. So you can't bypass this. No matter who you are, where you're at, or what you're doing, you are going to be subject to things that startle you and grab your attention, or things that grab your fear and trigger that. And attention is the boss of the brain. So wherever your attention goes, your mind follows. And if you just sit back for a minute and think about that, it absolutely does. The problem with being afraid to fly is you can't quit thinking about everything. I was relating, Eric, when we used to do our check rides every 6 months, all right? How's your attention leading up to the check ride, right? I mean, we were all experienced, we were all rated pilots and all that, but we had to prove ourselves every 6 months. So what was the night before your sim ride for you?
Oh my God, I'd wish that my poor wife had a boyfriend. I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror. I wanted to go out and throw handicapped children out of a wheelchair or club harp seals to paste just for their pelts. I mean, I was just a wreck. I hated myself, and I'd go walk in and knock on wood, they all went very, very smoothly, and it was all good. But even 2 months prior, just like our people, I just start thinking about it, and the closer it got, the more I'd think about it. Yeah, I burned a lot of life sweating those. Yeah,
normal thinking goes out the window. And there's been studies that show that when people are in even moderate stress, your IQ and your capacity to think rationally actually goes down. And I mean, when you think about that, that's pretty incredible. No less than, we know that conscious awareness is a product of the mind, as if the mind were the software and the brain were the hardware, but they operate in concert. And no less than if somebody hits you overhead with a mallet, when you're under stress, your ability to be conscious and high functioning goes out the door or out the window. And it's just like that. And a phobia is an intense fear that is produced when your mind confuses the perception of a danger for a real threat. You can't do like a smoke detector that doesn't know the difference between burnt toast and a real fire. You have no control, because that's the way we're wired. That's how we got here from our ancestors hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago. They started the ability to look into the environment around them, to predict the future to the extent that they had experiences, and they remembered that the next time. And those that didn't abide or didn't pay attention to the early warnings that their brains were giving them, they got taken out of the gene pool. And you just can't, we don't have their genes. You've heard me tell this story about Rudy and Eugene. Rudy and Eugene were mythical hominids traversing the savannas of Africa. And they would come up on maybe they see a beige colored rock, and they would, Eugene said, that could be a lion. So Eugene said, I'm not going to go forward until I know that it isn't a lion. And there's a name for that, actually. It's called a type 2 error. And we're biased negatively towards type 2 errors. And a type 2 error means that if you make an error, assume it's the worst, and then it turns out not to be, you live. If you're like Rudy, on the other hand, you say, it's probably just a beige colored rock and not a lion, and he pressed forward and he got eaten. So he got taken out of the gene pool. We got Eugene's genes, and I call that the worry gene, and that's how we got this way. So even as a fearful flyer, many people, a majority of people that I work with now talk about how they know that flying is safe, and their issue isn't really about crashing and dying. It's about their inability to manage the intensity of their feelings. And when I say, well, you're not afraid to die, but it sounds like you almost would choose death over the miserable feelings that you have, because it is so pervasive, and it affects the not only the enjoyment of flying, but just the serenity of your entire life there. And once your attention gets hijacked, it does, as we said before, it takes over it becomes the boss of your brain. And your only recourse at that point in time is to regain control over your attention and reverse your biology. And again, I'm gonna just stop here for a second and talk about, so what kind of things did you do, Eric, when when to try to get your sanity before you walked into the sim? What were the stories you would tell yourself?
Oh, I didn't have it much. I had to just do what essentially a harmonizing activity: play racquetball, swim, do stuff like that. Anything to force lack of engagement, idle time in the sim. But that was made tougher by intense studying, where I'm focused very intently on what I'm doing, and that was required to be able to, as you know, to puke that back up in the simulator. So you can't very well disassociate yourself from the action while you're studying it to be able to reproduce it. I just had to have some downtime away from that.
Yeah, downtime, and we would work on it. I mean, I used to tell myself, it took me 20 some years of experience to finally relax a little bit before my check ride, saying, if you don't know it now, Ron, you're never going to know it. And but your brain would discount that. And I like to think that there's even more parallels, because when we actually train, and when you actually get in the simulator, the anticipatory anxiety that which we so greatly feared, not unlike a fearful flyer, it diminished, right? You got in there, and the check ride was, when we were actually being evaluated, it was never as intense as the training that would lead us up to that, right? Because they would do horrendous things to it. You got, one takeoff, you got to fire, then you're losing an engine, and then you're landing, and the gear collapses and all that. And it's just like batting practice. But when we actually get in the check ride, they only give you a certain amount, in the ride shorter and all that. And so again, just like you all out there, anticipatory anxiety is what makes this such a pain in the butt, because it's much worse than the actual situation. And that also speaks to the fact of why we train in the simulator and why it's so rigorous. Because when we do it over and over and over again, even if we're going to be surprised if you take off in an airplane. I don't care how many years you've got experience, and you lose an engine, it's going to be a surprise. There's no way that we're not going to have some element of being startled. But the benefit of training and doing it repetitiously over and over and over again is it kicks in automatically. And the same parallel opportunity is there for you all out there. Listen to the harmonizer, right with your non-preferred hand. Get support from people. Have somebody that you can get support from sitting next to you in the airplane. All those kinds of skills and strategies and coping techniques that we talk about apply just as much towards somebody who's afraid to fly as a passenger in the back as somebody who's like Eric and I, who actually flew the airplane up front. So
if I was flying with one of my buddies, and I probably should admit this, but it's so funny, my first flight after getting out of the sim, after a check ride, if I was with one of my friends, I'd say, if you don't mind, would you mind flying the first leg of the first takeoff? I have a slightly elevated sense of paranoia, and they'd go, sure. They'd say, yeah, it's not a problem. I said, maybe you should quit smoking so much pot and relax a little more. And they go, yeah, whatever, just knock yourself out. Because I'd be looking at the airplane like it was a simulator on. Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, I didn't really need to be that jumpy. So I'd have my buddy do the first takeoff after check rides.
Yeah.
That's like we definitely got a lot of response to that relapse, and so
Okay.
a lot of comments, and just a couple here. It was getting easier for me, but being out of practice made it 10 times worse. I
So
will
that's
say
the
that
relapse, so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Keep going.
yeah, I haven't flown enough to prevent relapse. So I've been better until 2020, and then it came back with a vengeance. So there is definitely a theme that those of us who didn't have the opportunity to fly a whole lot over the last couple of years, it's like that muscle, in a way, that muscle memory is definitely diminished, and also the confidence, right? Except Jim, I love what Jim said, because Jim commented, I remember when Jim came to the Air Hollywood class, and then we got an email after he came home. He almost had an accident on the freeway, actually, driving home from the class.
Oh.
And I remember, it's like, wow. And he actually said, well, I haven't flown in 3 years but the last 2 flights I took before were amazing. So for me, it gets easier with every flight. And so I will say that Jim, as far as I can tell from where I'm sitting, you have practiced. And when I say that, even though you might have not been on a physical airplane, every time you come on the show and you let your imagination kind of get yourself into the plane, and you remember those flights that you had just before COVID, you actually build that muscle memory. You build on that positive feedback loop in your body. And so that's why I'm not surprised that for you, you're actually looking forward to it, and you're excited. And anxiety and excitement actually use the exact same neural connections in the brain, which is fascinating. So yeah, that's.
And it's almost paradoxical that I'm going to be bold and say the reason Jim is doing so well is because he changed the way he thought. But the first problem is, if you don't have a large core of experience and confidence, it's hard to change the way you think. I have people that, and this speaks to relapse, people that I work with, they're successful, they fly, and then they don't fly for over the pandemic, or maybe 6 months or a year later, and then they call me up and say, hey, I'm having the same kind of symptoms and stuff. And I say, well, what have you done in the interim? And they say basically nothing, and that's the definition of insanity. If you keep thinking the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results, it's not going to happen. So you got to change the way you think, and thinking, it's going to be the way you get out of it. But the problem is you can't use the same thinking that got you into this mess. You've got to think differently. And the way you think differently is, we like to think you use the fearless flight method. And what is that? That means you've got to start by educating yourself. You got to learn more about airplanes, how they fly, psychology, and how you are wired. That's really important. So you can try to get outside that box that you're in. The second thing, and this is the thing that we encourage people to do, is learn how to disrupt your thinking. And that's part of it takes education and more knowledge about that, and distract yourself. And think tools like the Fearless Flight Kit and the harmonizer are ways to distract your thinking. Meditation is another way, mindfulness and all that. But distraction over the long term is we don't want you to use that as the only tool, because sometimes that doesn't work. So we can't use distraction in the context of disrupting. So we initially, the harmonizer is great because it has an overwhelming capacity to drown out that crazy voice in your head that's not doing you anything but driving you crazy. But what you want to do over the long term is you want to be able to use that as a way to disrupt your thinking and regain control of your attention. The absolute positive goal of the Fearless Flight method is to regain control over your attention once it gets hijacked. And as Eric and I were talking about, you're not going to be able to prevent that. You are a human being, and you are always going to have your attention hijacked by things. And then, of course, the last thing is what you're all participating in here tonight is join a community. And that turns out when we have the group flights, which we have another one coming up here on June 11th, we'll talk about in just a minute. We absolutely see that the number one benefit is the community and the sense of community that people have by the time they meet at the airport and go flying with us. And it's just incredible. I've said that for a long time. What I noticed is it's just, you just can't describe how impactful it is when people get together with a common goal and a common history, being afraid to fly. And it's like there's nobody else on the airplane when we meet. It's just like, oh, there's John, there's Ron, there's Eric, and there's a connection. And we know that produces oxytocin, which is the relationship chemical in our brain, and it's there to help you diminish and reduce the flow of cortisol and adrenaline and all those things that really get your body all hyped up. So we just wanted to review that tonight and share with you. And so Relapse is really a subset of what you did to start with. So taking notes. When I coach people, I record the sessions and offer them that, so you don't have to distract yourself. You can focus on attending to the dialogue between us and not have to worry about taking notes and keeping track of what you did before, journaling. And I encourage everybody to journal until you get so comfortable that you absolutely positively don't need to journal anymore. I recommend that you carry something with you, writing with your non-preferred hand sometimes, to help again reduce the amount of bandwidth that's available to drive yourself crazy with all those scurrilous thoughts that we have. We're getting anything, Eric, to add to that?
I'm just thinking after what we were talking about and simulators and all that kind of stuff, we could rebrand ourselves as, combined with the group, us together with the group are a Fearless Flight simulator.
Yeah,
That's what we are. Yeah.
So, Dieter, I forgot to connect with you before we got into this about the 201, and so let's just off the cuff here. We want to bring people on board with this. Oops! Oh! My first faux pas for the evening there. Hopefully you can see the slide now.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is no longer a specific date that you have to be ready for, and you have to be there and catch the webinar live, although we do live webinars every month, live coaching webinars. And the next one coming up is going to be this Thursday evening. And if you are a current member of the CFT 201 class modules, you will be you'll get all the information. You'll get a link to register for the webinar, and you'll get a reminder to join us on Thursday night. And we're gonna the goal, the emphasis is switching just a little bit. I want to make that a live support time, rather than hearing Eric and I and Dieter do all the talking. We want to engage you, and we want to see how you're doing with the course. We want to know what you need in terms of ideas and techniques to make the course the most effective for you. And we want to be there to help you if you get stuck. With that, we also have a huge community that is within the course, separate from the Birds of a Feather and our Facebook page. And this is dedicated to people involved in the course, either past, present, or future, so that you can connect with each other and connect with those of us at Fearless Flight here. Do we have this embarrassing? Do we have those links ready to go?
Yeah,
Yeah,
And as a
okay.
matter of fact, I'm also gonna put in the link for the flight from Burbank to Sacramento on June 11th. If anybody in the Los Angeles area wants to jump on, there is a cleared for takeoff 301 graduation flight happening on June 11th. And if you are currently a student of the 201 online course, then we have a $200 coupon for you. And you can get that coupon in your 201 students portal. So that's that. Do you want to speak more to that, Ron?
Yeah, I want to, not only are we making this, we've had a number of people who have flown, even in the most recent 201 class, that said, hey, when are you going to fly again? And so LA it just happens to be like Phoenix. It's an area that we've been dominant in for quite a while. So we decided to go ahead and do another 20 or 301 class on June 11th coming up. Okay. And we're also extending that to people who aren't in the current version, that I call it the Clifford Takeoff 201 2.0, but people who have taken the course in the past. And so if you do not get an invite from us, please contact me or Dieter and let us know. And we're making a special offer to any of you that might be out there as well. I've got people that I've done the elite coaching with that have asked me. I got at least 2 of those people who haven't flown throughout the pandemic, and they feel like their skills have dropped away, but they know the value of doing a flight with us live. And we're going to do the Burbank to Sacramento again. It's a great route. We got the people at the Burbank station. We've been with them for, oh my gosh, this is our 8th year with them. And the station manager over there has been totally supportive of that. So we really don't want to leave anybody behind when we fly on June 11th. So take a look at the link in there. And if you, like I said, if you haven't enrolled in the course since September, but you were before that, and you don't get an invitation, a special invitation to the flight, please contact Dieter or I via email. It's Captain Ron at FearlessFlight.com. Okay. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about before we part ways here? Are you going to be able to go with us, Eric? Do you have any idea yet? Or?
I may be able to. That's in the middle of a social calendar thing. I need to iron these out with you in advance, but I may be able to sneak away from where I am to come down, meet the group in Burbank, and at least fly the one leg outbound, which would really be fun. So yeah. I'm going to be able to do that. I really want to go.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of people asking, come to Chicago, come to Miami. And with the 201 class, which is really the course, the 201 course, which is really the prerequisite to have a great experience for your 301 flight. Now it's possible to, get enough people in other cities around the country. And so I'm going to even encourage those of you in Chicago, in Miami, if you know of other people who are afraid to fly, why not do the 201 course together with them? And we have a questionnaire form in the 201 members area where you can actually, I think we have 10 cities, and you can choose the city that you would want to vote for, where the next 301 graduation flight is going to take place. And basically, when we have 5 people in a given area, then it makes it possible for Ron to come out. And if we have more, than Ron and Eric will come out there.
Yeah.
So who's even more, even I can come.
Yeah. So exactly. So who's it for? Number one, it's for people in the 201 class, okay, or in the 201 online course. And who would that benefit? That would help not only people in the course, get them ready to fly, but it would also be a great help to have it in your backpack so that you could use it to prevent relapse. And we're making this so for the people who are not current, that is, have joined us in that since September and been a part of that, who have direct access, we're making it lucrative, or at least not prohibitive, so that if you weren't in the current class, you can do that. So rather than just pay the higher price for the 301, if you just want to do that, you're better off to add the 201 to it, take advantage of the discounts we're offering, and you're going to get basically 2 for 1. Okay. And as Dieter said, when you're in the course, this is a fluid thing. We didn't know we were going to do this 6 weeks ago. We did not know that we were going to fly out of LA. And we looked at the numbers, and we looked at the people who have identified that they would like to see us fly within that time period. A lot of people have flights coming up over the summer, and so we said, let's jump on it. And I will commit to you, we're going to do the same thing. You may not have more than a month in advance. Sometimes the more people and the quicker they identify where they want to fly to, the easier and the more in advance we can let you know. But if we find we got a group of people and we can get a decent fare on Southwest, we'll fly someplace at the drop of a hat. Okay. And we won't be doing it in July because I'm going to be gone in Europe for 3 weeks out of the month. And I'm tickled as a pig in the mud about that. Looking forward to it. If my eyes aren't bigger than my stomach, I'm going to try to actually do the shows, which would be on the backside of the clock over there. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to be flying on some carriers that I've never been on before, and kind of doing my own roving reporter there. So, but the thing that I would like to leave you with tonight, if you want to get over this, you got to change the way you think. Because when your attention gets triggered by your fight or flight system, because it doesn't know the difference between a real or an imagined threat, you are gone, and your attention gets hijacked. You can't think of anything else. So the real secret to overcoming your fear of flying is to be able to wrest control back of your attention, and you can do it. We've had people every week that have been through coaching or through one of our classes that are reporting back that not only they had a flight, but it was hugely successful, way better than what their last experience was. And that's our goal. We're not promising that you won't have any anxiety the next time you fly, but what we are promising is your anxiety will not be limiting as it has in the past. And if you want to prevent relapse, you got to stay connected to us, to the community, and to the content. That's how you do it. Okay. Looking forward to ending up with the banner year. We got a lot of things going on. I'm knee deep in stuff on top of my desk to do. And fortunately, Dieter stays with me and keeps helping me stay directed here. But we got a lot of things coming up. We got a lot of additions. We're going to make some additions to the Fearless Flight Kit. We got some new things coming out in the way of audios and things like that. And we just hope that you'll stick with us, not just now, not just next month, but well into the future. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Josh says, hey, what if you're in Sacramento? So I'm just gonna say, hey, Josh, send an email to Captain Ron at Fearless Flight. I'm also gonna put that email in your comment there, and maybe we can figure something out with you and for you. And other than that,
if we don't know, we can't help you. But if you just talk to us, and don't be bashful. Don't be bashful. So
or maybe even schedule a 15-minute coaching call. That might be a good way to talk about that.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So I mean, I got a whole list of people that did that. Some people did a 15-minute coaching call 3 years ago, and now they're saying, okay, I'm ready. So you just take advantage of it. It's there to do that. So thanks, Eric, once again. Thanks, Dieter, and thanks to you all for another successful show, at least from our point of view, Fearless Flight Live, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Good night, everybody.